Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, aka Caliban, and I'm not saying Grudge is fat, but she gets beamed with a cargo transporter. Pattern buffer, more like peanut butter. She's a fat cat, I'm telling you.
She's a Maine Coon, isn't she? She's big boned.
Yes, all of Maine Coon, yes. Joining me on the show, as usual, is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to Discoverage.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. Happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was, what was that? Tuesday? Tuesday was my birthday?
Well, I hope you would know. Did you do anything
Very
fun?
We went, I had some friends over it's fun now that I'm like an adult. My birthday's so close to Christmas. When I was a kid, it was like all my friends left for my birthday.
Yeah.
And now that I'm an adult, it's like all my friends come home for my birthday because they're coming home to see their family for Christmas. So,
right.
We went sledding. We made some lovely peanut noodles. It was a good time.
Sounds great. In all that business with the noodles and the sledding, have you gotten a chance to watch The Matrix Resurrections?
Can I tell you something? A secret just between me and you and the live podcast is that I've never seen our millions and millions of listeners. I have never seen The Matrix.
That was my next question. If it matters at all to you.
So the next part of this is no, but like someday probably, but for whatever reason, I have never seen The Matrix.
That actually is not too surprising. And the new Matrix, I'm not spoiling anything to say, is very concerned with the old Matrix and the fact that it was 20 years ago or so. And so, it's just very much, that movie spoke, I think, to specifically, to my generation. And this movie is another attempt to try to engage with my generation. So I am not too surprised that you kind of missed it. And I don't know, if you ever do end up watching it or the new one, I'd certainly like to know your response as a sort of Matrix virgin.
Well, absolutely. And were you engaged? Were they successful in this endeavor?
Oh, you want my review of The Matrix? I would say the fourth movie was...
Maybe in the Spark Notes.
Well, yeah, sure. I enjoyed it, and I could feel that I probably enjoyed it only because I was already a Matrix fan. It was definitely designed for me, and there are a lot of kind of sins or mistakes that it makes that I was willing to sort of ignore because, it was clearly meant to engage with somebody who had, really enjoyed the first three Matrix films and thought about them a lot in the ensuing years. Yeah.
Well, sometimes that's all you can ask for. Let's say the fourth Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the fifth Indiana Jones movie. Yeah, which is coming out. Yeah. I think that
exactly. Like I will see that.
Yeah, nostalgia is the new zombies. Like nostalgia is, the Spider-Man movie was all about nostalgia.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay. Well, it's all about like.
But I feel like I know.
yeah. It's reaching out to people who have enjoy the thing already. And honestly, Trek, I think in a lot of ways is also kind of skating that line. They are both cutting a new path, but also definitely, making entreaties to fans who have watched it in the past to say, this is still Star Trek.
Oh, 100%. Well, especially with just like the amount of shows they're doing, they're able to do both very easily, I would say.
Yeah. It's also possible that, and I guess I've never thought about this before, but maybe you do one for new fans and one for old fans. So like Picard, was greenlit because Discovery was greenlit. Discovery set within the canon of the show, or the franchise, but is still meant to appeal to new viewers. And then it's like, okay, we'll give, old TNG heads like their Picard.
Toss them a bone.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah, you might as well. It's smart. It's just good business.
Any businessman will tell you it's good business. Well, it's at this part of the show that we talk about the news and the business of Trek, and we have news of which to talk about. First and most importantly, connected to this show, Star Trek Discovery will be going on hiatus after next week's episode. December 30th, that will be the last episode, the mid-season finale, and the show will return on February 10th.
Interesting. Just give us a little month break there.
Yeah, it's the first time that
Prodigy...
That's
week of Prodigy in January?
Yeah, Prodigy comes back that next week then on the 6th. So this is basically
Bizarre.
like what we sort of hypothesized would happen, but we didn't know for sure. Yeah.
We're so smart.
So obviously leading up to, I guess, something big, hopefully, for next week. This is the first time that the show has done this since the first season. Yeah,
I wonder why they chose to have the break. I wonder if they're forcing... Not forcing. Forcing is maybe a little bit of an aggressive word, but forcing the Prodigy viewing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
like they're like, oh, just cut Disco for a few weeks and give them Prodigy, and they'll all definitely watch it.
Sure. Yeah. Bill B. Jones for Trek. Yeah. The businessman would also tell you that's probably a good move too. I also think it's kind of good to, looking at, what was it last year? The 23 weeks of Trek, and just like, sit down, we're doing this, you're going to be here for 13 weeks, maybe breaking it up a little bit, kind of like they used to do on broadcast TV is a good idea. A lot of wisdom.
I kind of forgot about
old days.
So much wisdom. I kind of forgot about the 23 weeks of Trek.
Yeah.
And it's funny that now they're not like 365 straight days of Star Trek.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But at least it alternates, a little bit from show to show. It'll also be the only place you can get it because all 5 Star Trek series currently on Amazon will be gone from Prime Video by the 1st of January.
Wow. The new stuff or the old? So just all Star Trek?
TOS through Voyager or Enterprise will be gone from streaming video on Amazon. Still available for purchase, but they will not be streaming anymore. And then as far as their international distribution goes, they might be available still. Like I know the upcoming second season of Picard will be available on Prime Video to stream for international customers. But other than that, Star Trek in streaming is leaving Amazon. TNG and DS9 are still available on Netflix, but all the other Star Trek shows are gone from there as well. So it's this consolidation that you've heard so much about.
They have to put the hammer down on having the Star Trek exclusive platform.
Yes, this is a beautiful garden. Sure could use some walls around it. Yeah. So if you don't have, I don't know how you're watching this, listeners, but you will only be able to watch it if you're in America on Paramount Plus soon. So find a solution for that. I wanted to mention one more. Get
your buddy's password.
Yeah, that's right. You should start sharing those passwords. One more story before we talk about the episode tonight. It is going to sound like bad news, but it's not. It's fine. But William Shatner was in a car accident.
So I didn't see this.
I saw this happened yesterday. It just kind of came up on the news wire, but he was driving his black Mercedes SUV in California. Looks like he was in a, not just a fender bender, kind of a intense accident, but
a little rough.
Some nightcrawler got a picture of him standing outside of his car. He looks, his dogs were in the car. They seem okay. He seems okay, but...
Well, that's
he was thinking space thoughts. This is only 2 months, of course, after he came back from space. And, of course, the debut of his documentary on Amazon Prime, which I have not watched yet, but I do plan to watch, Shatner in Space.
Me neither. I'm a little afraid to watch it. I just feel like I watched that clip of him being like, wow, the weightlessness is amazing. Yeah, and I'm like, do I'm obviously, a fan of Star Trek. It's fun to see William Shatner in space, but I'm also like, do I want to hear William Shatner talk like that for however long the documentary is? I'm unsure. The jury's out.
I want to. Well, I want to watch it for that reason. Like, I want to know how much he's involved.
What is he going to say?
Yeah, because this does. Don't get me wrong. He would jump in front of like any camera. You know, when he goes to Walmart, he'll jump into the baby pictures and jump in front of the camera there. But I'm wondering how much of it is, because this feels like, you know, Amazon propaganda, a Blue Origin propaganda.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking it'll be like half package about, you know, his life as an actor and his work in Star Trek, which they don't have anymore, so why promote that? And then also just, you know, footage from him getting ready, and so I mean, I think I'm interested.
Yeah, me too. I'm also, you know, I'm very glad he's okay. But can you imagine? Did he hit an object? I'm assuming another car hit him.
Yeah, the photo has got him standing next to another car that's kind of wrecked up. An unidentified woman was driving the car.
Imagine that you're like, oh no, I just got in a car accident, and you get out, and it's Bill Shatner.
Yeah. Well, you know, he's covered with insurance. You know, he's got that.
Well, that's true, but he's like, where were you? Well, you're looking at the road, and you're like, I don't.
Yeah. I always worried about like rear-ending, you know, a car, and then like Mike Tyson gets out, and it's like, oh my god, oh no. Oh, no. But I think
don't make eye contact. Just look away.
Yeah, I think everything's going to be okay with him, and that's good news. And I think jury's out on him being in a Trek show. You know what I mean? Like he can't have turned his back completely, right? He's still going, still doing his thing. He's just about the only elder Trek star that we haven't tried to cram into something new somehow. So I can't understand why this hasn't happened yet, but maybe soon.
I mean, I don't know, though, because, you know, back in the day, I think I'll stand by him. Solid performance, okay?
Yeah.
But can you imagine him, like, in any of these news shows, like, still doing the William Shatner delivery? And, like... And it's I feel like, you know, Discovery is I feel like it's a decently serious show. And I can't imagine him on another series, like, doing the classic bits.
I don't know. I feel like you're selling it to me. I feel like he'd fit in perfectly.
You're like, I want it more.
We find, he gets another, like, robot Soong body or whatever, and then we find him drifting around. And you tell us about the tech war that he just escaped, or whatever cross-promotion thing he wants to do. Yeah, go for it.
It would be entertaining. I'll give you that much. I would be entertained.
Are you not entertained? That is their goal.
Exactly. And I am.
Well, let's find out if we were entertained by tonight's episode, the 6th episode of the 4th season of Star Trek Discovery, an episode called Stormy Weather, and we're here to talk all about it. But first, as always, a warning. We're setting a course for the spoiler zone, listeners, so be warned. We're glad you've decided to join us, but if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for Stormy Weather is, seeking answers, the USS Discovery ventures into a subspace rift created by the dark matter anomaly. Meanwhile, Book faces a strange visitor from his past. This episode is written by Ann Koffel Saunders and Brandon Schultz. Saunders has served as a co-executive producer and staff writer on the show. She previously wrote the episodes Scavengers, Su'Kal, and Anomaly from this season. Schultz has been a staff writer and story editor for the series as well. He previously wrote the second season episode Perpetual Infinity, and he also wrote the short trek The Girl Who Made the Stars. And this episode is directed by Jonathan Frakes, who, of course, needs no introduction. No star date for this episode. One fun fact that I could think of from this episode, this is the first time that the galactic barrier, the barrier that surrounds the Milky Way galaxy, was mentioned since the original series episode Is There in Truth No Beauty?
Wow.
So, long callback there.
That's so... I didn't even catch that. That's so interesting.
Yes, and that is just about it for the facts. We can talk a little more, I guess, about what we think is happening as far as what's going on with the barrier and the DMA. But first of all, the question, what did you think about the episode Stormy Weather?
I enjoyed it. I think that they're still being pulled in like some different directions. Like I thought at the beginning, I was like, oh, we're doing a horror episode, like almost like what was that? when they were in there with the tardigrade, and the tardigrade's just like in the dark before it was super early, and it was like creepy. And it seemed like they were getting pulled in a couple different directions there. Couldn't quite do like the straight horror episode, which is fine. But I did enjoy it. I think it's crazy. I think we're moving more and more towards figuring out the Calypso Star Trek.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked it. I liked it overall. I enjoyed myself. It's not like my favorite, but I did think it was pretty stunning. I was surprised. Had some gasps. Had some hands clapping over my mouth. Yeah. What about you?
I agree to some of those things. I agree generally. Yeah. I think the direction they were being pulled in tonight was a bottle episode. It was clear. I don't know what kind of money or budget they've got or what they're planning on doing in the future, what they've spent so far. But it clearly seemed like, can you guys just like go to a black void where there's nothing, and then we can all just talk, on existing sets and have no guest stars, and we'll ratchet up the tension in different ways through the writing. But it was clear that the idea, and they certainly made a meal out of them, sort of exploring this void. At one point, somebody mentions that subspace is toxic, and I thought that was an interesting idea, but. At the same time, just being a TV head, I'm like, okay, we're saving a few dollars this week. But it did give us a chance to dig into some specific things. And one of the things that I think, being, again, a TV head, that I'm noticing about the writing on Discovery is I think they're really taking advantage of that idea where you go, okay, we're going to get this, and this done this week. And to do that, let's take characters who have not spent time together or pairings that we don't often see, and we get like the book Stamets pairing, and tonight we got the Gray Zora pairing, which I never would have called, but I thought was
me neither
a really fun thing to do and a really great chance to give Ian Alexander some more to do, and I thought that he was especially good and especially charming tonight.
Also like just super interesting because it's like everybody else, including me, I feel like is looking at Zora like she's this computer and something is wrong with the computer.
Yeah. And
I felt like this episode, Gray was looking at her like, oh, this is like a being that went through a very large change, like an identity shift, and not at all like with no like fear or distrust, which was interesting. And it was interesting to see how that like affected like the way she was functioning was super bizarre.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. You get kind of like Hal vibes, and she's like, I'm scared, Dave. I mean, Commander Byrne.
But very.
And we don't know at this point the status of artificial intelligence in the 32nd century, but thinking about where we left it in the 24th or 25th century, it's still kind of a really open question. You've got a person like Data, and then of course later Soji and Daj, who are clearly sentient, and have feelings, but how do they deal with them? And is Zora in the first stages of her own journey towards self-awareness? And I think it was smart of the writers to say, okay, well, that's all well and good, and maybe someday we'll have, a robot Annabelle Wallace on the show. But before then, how does it affect, can she operate? Can she do what she does? If the Majel Barrett voice on the Enterprise suddenly had feelings, like, would that screw everything up? Yeah.
Well, and it's like, I was kind of like, if I were Burnham, I would be like, yo, we gotta like eject this SD card like yesterday.
Yeah.
And we can put her somewhere else because we have to do the whole measure of a man thing with it.
Yeah.
But I can't. This episode where she's like, I'm afraid I can't do it. I was like, if I was on a Starfleet vessel and my computer was like, this is spooky, I'm not sure, I'd be like, I would lose my gourd.
Yeah. And, and obviously they're under immense crisis in this particular situation.
Yeah.
And so her solution is like, okay, well, let's just talk to it and we'll reassure it as quickly as we can and get the problem solved. And of course she gets to bond with it later in the final scene. I had two thoughts about that. One, Culber is in the episode. He's working on book and that's important, but he is the counselor. Maybe Maybe in the future, a future episode, he'll end up talking to Zora. And 2, it's another example of, boy, Discovery just moves at a real clip, doesn't it? Like, if the ship becoming self-aware, or at least possibly sentient, was an entire TNG episode. Like, if the ship ends up making trying to send you a message by running you over with a train in the holodeck or whatever, they would spend the next 4 acts with Picard being like, we're contacting a new life form. Like, this is our final frontier. What do we do? And in this, Burnham's like, I need to talk to this thing. Gray, come over here.
Yeah.
You're going to be all right. You're going to be okay. We're going to get through this together. Now fly us out of here. It's like a little, still having a place for the kind of questions and stories that Trek examines, but also like, we gotta move through this thing. This is get through these action beats.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when was it Saru who got to the ship and was like, Zora, and Burnham was like, the computer picked her name, and he was like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She can also hear everything we're saying. Yes. So
that's the thing is, nice. I was like, so she's just listening when they were talking about it in the elevator. I was like, okay, so she's just listening to Burnham be like, oh, like when Michael, was shooting those little looks. I was like, so can't the computer still see you? Can Zora still see you when you make that little face after you say, well, it's fine, Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's also got everybody's email addresses or information, because at the end she makes
personal
her own,
information. She's got everyone's credit card codes.
Yeah, she does her Ancestry.com thing at the end.
I mean, she's definitely she's sort of, serving Jarvis, and I trust Jarvis, but, he was also never like spooky scared until, he did become a person, which perhaps we have a little, although I guess Calypso, so she can't become she's not going to become a person because we have to get to Calypso, right?
Yeah, good question.
Did that make sense?
We don't know still. By the time, and I meant to look it up, Dodge, Badge, Cadge, what's that guy's name?
I don't know.
I'll look it up while I talk, because I'm good like that.
Okay.
In that episode, we do see that, she's much more emotional. Like, she's essentially just a person.
Yeah. It really is a person.
Is a ship. Yeah. And so I think that we are on pace to meeting up with that, the circumstances of that episode.
I thought this was the end.
His name is Kraft.
I thought this was the end for the ship. Like, I was like, oh, we're going. This is how Calypso, this is how it's going to float forever.
Okay. Sure. Right here. Yeah, that was an interesting solution to the problem. This is one of those, I was a little, I don't know, this is one of those things where like the technology or the technobabble of Trek smooths things over a little too well. Because it's like, we'll put everybody in the pattern buffer. And it's like, okay, that's an interesting solution. It's also something that we've seen in Star Trek before. But my thing was like, there's been so many changes in the technology, and they haven't really like defined how the extent that 32nd century technology can go. And it's not for them to do in like one episode, obviously. You want to leave it open. But is this something that like all ships can do? Like we're going to pass through dangerous radiation bands or something like that, so we can all kind of hide, like, in the computer and the pattern buffer. I just wondered if like Discovery was the first people to come up with that, or if the personal transporters of the 32nd century allow you to do that. Also, like, I've read, I don't know about Discovery and its refit, but I've read the TNG technical manual, and I know that there are spacesuits all over the Enterprise D. Like, couldn't everybody just put on a suit like Burnham, or would they all have just kind of cooked in their own juices like the way that she did?
Well, exactly, because Burnham, really barely made it.
Yeah, it's true. She was also like, once again, did the flame jets on the bridge contribute to it being too hot, or did they take away? Are they venting heat, or are they adding it? I do like the wipe technology. There's so many wipes. It's almost like somebody heard me last week, and they're like, "Oh, you like wipes?"
It literally was. I thought it right away. I was like, "Oh my god, we're gonna have a field day with this." Although these ones, it was almost like. And maybe I didn't catch the one last week, but it was almost as if it was like they were trying to give us like the layers of the ship, like we're going down a floor, you know what I mean, we're going over a deck.
Yeah, it was like
that makes sense, because it was like those wide black bands.
Yeah, it was like a Quentin Tarantino movie where they're going to do a heist.
It was very bizarre, though.
Into different frames. Yeah, I mean, it was fine. It made sense because it was like a montage. You know, they were showing people do stuff, and it was kind of keeping.
Yeah, it had more context. Yeah,
just the one singular wipe into the last scene last week was like, what?
That was bizarre. Get
that guy away from the editing bay. So let's see what else is going on in the episode. We're in toxic subspace. The DMA, of course. The DMA. Book. We can talk about Book's side story as well. What do you think about Book seeing this vision, maybe actually seeing the spirit of his father?
I guess I didn't get, we didn't get into it enough this episode for me to like nail down what I think is actually going on. Because initially I was like, oh, he's seeing it. It's inside of his head, because when we looked at Book from, I don't know, I'd have to see it again to get really into to be impressive about my film student, vocabulary or whatever.
Sure.
But when we first see Book, the energy surge hit Book, his little things in his forehead are glowing, and whether that's through, the audience's eyes or through Stannis' eyes, they're glowing. And then when it cuts to how Book experienced that moment, his head isn't glowing. And so I was like, oh, it's all happening inside of his head in that like one moment in time. It's not happening outside of his head. He didn't actually speak out loud.
Okay.
But then we cut to like the med bay, and it's like, okay, he's shouting at his father in front of the doctors.
Right. Yeah.
And his head's still not glowing. Although I guess maybe we didn't see the front of his head in that scene. Anyways, I have no idea. I haven't nailed down yet. Could just be hallucination. Lots of things have happened to Book lately. The energy surge, the overwhelming immense grief.
Every week something's happening.
It could be anything. Yeah. It could be anything. I don't know. What was your impression?
I don't know. How many of the characters on Discovery that we know have we met their parents? We haven't. I think it's interesting that they're giving him so much to do, and we, even with the death of his whole world, essentially, we're still getting to see the people in his life, and they're developing him as more of a character. Like, I'm not like predicting a book spinoff or anything like that, but I think that it's a mark of how much they respect him as an actor and as a character to give him all this stuff to do. I think it's really great. You think about other shows. Let's talk about like Rin the Andorian, for instance. I like Rin the Andorian, but he shows up. He serves one kind of purpose, then he's kind of used for something else, and then he's fridged. To motivate everybody in the finale of last year. So I love the fact that he's become a main cast member. As far as like the whole, I'm seeing like a parent, or I'm seeing like a vision of somebody who's like criticizing me. I mean, we've seen it done before, but I kind of forgot all the things that he said to him. Oh, he specifically said like, oh, don't, he basically tried to warn him off Burnham, saying that like, she's not going to care for you like the way, your family does. She's going to pick Starfleet over you. And I thought that was interesting. That made me feel like he was a manifestation of Book's subconscious and not some actual thing that he was, talking to.
That was all a really good way to put it. It reminded me of like how I feel like when we see grief on like TV, it's like, oh, somebody's sad for like an episode, and then maybe later they like yell something about how they have to do this because somebody died and they have to save this person.
Yeah.
And we're seeing Book go through this over like many episodes, and they're twisting it to be more of like, clearly we're not just watching Book be like sad every week. Obviously he's sad, but like we've seen him grow through it. And so maybe maybe they're using it more as like a way to see him grow. You know what I mean? It's like he's having these hallucinations. Maybe it's really more about like the grief, and like he's working through it, and he's learning, and he's like growing as a person, because those people are still like a part of him, right? I mean, even though they're gone. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where they go with it, or if he's able to. It did make me a little nervous. It did make me feel like maybe he's going to do something impulsive, because his dad was like, "What are you doing? You're doing nothing. You're sitting around here. You're like letting her order you around."
Yeah.
So I'm a little concerned that he's gonna like not take orders next week or something. Which
yeah. That's an interesting observation. I think that's a good way to look at it. And we've tracked Grief through other characters on the show, but the fact that he doesn't have specific like Starfleet duties to do means that he can't just be like, well, I'll cry at the beginning and the end of the show. I gotta like do the Starfleet things now. I have to save the ship or do whatever. He just gets to sort of stew in this. And then this week he's like, hey, I can help out. I'll do the thing. And then he does the thing and he's like, he gets like electrocuted. As if by a wire, even though we don't use wires anymore. But we've kept the metaphor of like a wire, though. So yeah, I think we'll definitely keep tracking that going forward. Hopefully next week won't be the stupid thing that he does. The rash thing that gets everybody in trouble.
I also think I feel like I say this every week, but I really am confused about how we have these characters that are like kind of main characters in the show who are not Starfleet officers. And I'm not saying that that every character on Star Trek has to be a Starfleet officer.
Yeah.
Obviously. But like today, Book was like, oh, let me, like, before he was like, oh, let me do the jump. He was on the ship and he was like, oh, I'll go out there. And Burnham was like, no, wait. And he was like, no, I can do it. And it's like, if you're the captain of the ship, you can't really be having people questioning especially when something so serious is happening.
Yeah.
But Book isn't a Starfleet officer. And so he's just like having this dialogue kind of like with his girlfriend. And
yeah, if like Captain Picard's girlfriend came on the bridge and was like, oh, don't do that. Like, yeah.
Well, exactly. What? And so it like, and maybe it's just me being like, don't second guess her. Like, maybe I'm just like, maybe that is what is making me frustrated. And it's not so much like that he's not a Starfleet officer. I'm just like, why are you second guessing her decisions? But
yeah,
it's a little odd. It's like, especially in such a, I don't know, it's like an emergency situation.
Well, Burnham is, but Burnham's like an input type captain. Like, she'll take input. I mean, Wesley Crusher of the 32nd Century just walks on the bridge and goes, I was playing like Stratagema with the robot and I figured out that, and she's just like, okay, all right, tell me more. Say. Yeah.
Which, can be a strength, but I'm also like, so we're just letting anybody on, it's an emergency, we're just letting anybody on the bridge. He hasn't got a comm badge. How come, is there no like NDA? Why was Zora just told Gray literally everything that was happening, and I was like, are we just allowed to know?
Yeah.
I'm like, are we just allowed to tell anybody what's going on like upstairs? I feel like it's a little above Gray's pay grade, no offense, to be like, oh, that we sent out the robot, but the robot started screaming and disintegrated, so now we're just sitting here. Like,
I know they bring the Wallies back just for that. Just
literally,
was I programmed to feel pain? Yeah.
Or Eve, yeah.
Maybe this is why they don't use robots in Star Trek. I mean, we've thought about the idea that there is something, sure, they could just send a drone ship, but there is something about humans experiencing these things, seeing these wonders, being the ones who go out into the stars. But like, we kind of suggest that the DOTs have some kind of consciousness or awareness last year, and now we just send them out and they're screaming in pain. Like a robot can't volunteer. If we do make synthetic creatures who, like the synths from Picard, or like a Data, or even Azora perhaps, can they volunteer? Can they understand, that they are choosing to do something dangerous? If we send them instead of us, it's just like sending us, basically. I don't know. That's what I was thinking of as that robot was screaming to death.
No, you're definitely right about that. I guess my best guess about why it did that was like maybe some part of Zora's tech, right, is like in like, it's like Zora send out the dot, and it's like that's maybe somehow
part of like her drones or something. See, if they had made that explicit,
almost.
if they'd made that connection tonight, unless they did and I missed it, but like she was.
Well, there was one line about, but it wasn't about the dots. It was at the ship later. She's like, "Oh, I can feel they're part of me. I can like feel it dying when the stuff was blowing up." But like that wasn't about. That was a lot closer to home than the dots. So.
Because that would humanize it, if she sent this thing and it experienced death, but it was kind of part of her, and then she would be like, "Oh, I never really thought there was something like that could happen. Like I could be destroyed." Interesting. That is literal self-awareness.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I want to talk about the barrier, the galactic barrier, not the Great Barrier at the center of the galaxy, the barrier at the outside of the galaxy. So, like, what do you think's going on here? Is Book gonna go? What's his name? Shoot! What a great way to bring in that. Gary Marshall, who's the guy who goes nuts in the pilot. Gary Mitchell, right?
Oh,
is he gonna go like that or? Gary Marshall's Penny Marshall's dad.
I do not know.
Is this a race from beyond the galaxy? The Kelvins or
space race?
The Doomsday Machine came from beyond the galaxy. Didn't the amoeba from the Immunity Syndrome came from beyond the galaxy?
I don't know. We're getting into the part where the immense level of Star Trek knowledge that I claim to have in my brain. I'm now like, these. Sometimes they throw words out, and then somebody else is like, "That was a reference," and I'm like, "Okay, so that went right over my head."
Yeah. Is it? Well, here's a question: is it intergalactic planetary or planetary intergalactic?
Is it?
Beastie Boys.
Is there a difference?
It's Beastie Boys. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, what do you think the nature of the threat is? Is this supposed to be like a natural? Well, I guess we know it's not a natural phenomenon, but like, is it a metaphor for, like, what are they trying to do? What is it? If they don't say make the galaxy great again, I don't know what it is.
Oh my god. I mean, I think that maybe my best guess, and this is really not a guess, is that we'll have some more information next week that we can make guesses off of. Currently, at this point, I'm accepting things as they come.
Yeah,
and there are no thoughts.
Interesting.
Which is a great thing to say on a podcast.
Yeah,
just makes it really good and interesting when I have no thoughts. Do you have a tinfoil hat theory?
No, because I always try to. I mean, I have a lot of theories, but like I always try to play the odds. And like last year, it was something that was part of the universe of Trek, the idea of dilithium, and that, but it didn't necessarily connect to anything that we knew before. So this is also like a natural phenomenon, although we know it's an artificially created natural phenomenon. And so I'm wondering if last year it was unconnected, this year will they change it up and have it be the Romulans, or something like that? I don't know. I guess I would land on, I think that something that we know.
I have one.
Yeah.
It's the Federation. It goes all the way to the top. The Federation made it to pull people together so that they can defend everyone against it. The Incredible style. You know what I'm saying?
False flag DMA.
Exactly.
Oh,
Burnham,
that's horrifying.
Burnham gets it, cuts it. They're like, "You're welcome. We saved you. Sign the contract. You can never leave." Sign
the contract.
Yeah.
Either your name's going to be on that contract or your braids are. That's interesting. That would really pay off all the suspicion we have about our Federation president.
Do you think it's us though? Do you think, and maybe I should just say me, do you think the paranoia is deserved? Or do you think that she is just a politician? Because that last episode that she was in, I was like, okay, kind of maybe just being a politician.
Right.
Not that you shouldn't be suspicious of your politicians and your authority figures, kids, as we've discussed, but
if you've got a big lie, confess to a small lie, and then people will stop suspecting you. And so if she's like behind this big thing, she has this thing 2 weeks ago where she's like, okay, I kind of manipulated you because I knew you were the best person for the job, but it all worked out. And then we're like, no, okay. And we let our guard down. Yeah, maybe that's it.
Commit the war crime and then drop the, unclassify some documents. Commit the war crime and then let us know about Area 51. It's a classic.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting that this is another kind of mention of the existence of beings from outside our galaxy. Like we had that in... Well, we had that in Picard. I think, wasn't there something in Discovery? Or were they just from the future? I don't remember. Something about the sphere.
I need to ask a stupid question.
Yeah.
Voyager, is that where they were within our galaxy, correct? So that because the Delta Quadrant is within our galaxy.
Yeah. It's just like the boonies, like the far part.
Yeah, the suburbs.
So I'm interested to see, like, it's been Starfleet has been exploring for 1,000 years. I haven't done the math. Somebody has. But, if they've explored 8% of the galaxy in the 24th century, how much could they get done with technological advances by the year 3300 or whatever? I don't know the answer to that.
What if they meet like a god? What if the people from the galaxies are like What if they're just like crazy? Yeah,
possibly.
What if they just slap Disco out of space with one big hand?
You're definitely. I think we've seen that in TOS. Your dad and other writers might know more than we do because I know they've written about the Great Barrier in tie-in fiction. But I think one of the somewhere it's kind of suggested that maybe the barrier isn't to keep like things out; it's to keep us in. Like some godlike race has. Is it
implied that it's like? Something I have no memory of this. Is it that something put it there, or is it that it's just there, or we don't know?
I don't know. If, Greg Cox, has a series about Q and everything, and I think in that series, it's like the Q continuum is sort of responsible for it, or is connected to it somehow.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. They already mentioned Q.
Well, let's just get Greg on the horn here real quick.
Yeah, sure. They already mentioned.
I mean,
Q. John Delancey is already in Picard and Lower Decks, so why not bring him to Disco? Why not bring him to Disco?
I wish they would. Also, the Q to be like, what if it's like a god that's way out there? It's like, what is Q? I mean, he's really.
He might as well be.
He can do a lot. He might as well be. Not to inflate his ego more.
Right.
But
I'm nothing so petty as a god. Yeah.
Literally.
Well, it all remains to be seen. Anything else that you wanted to say about the show? I'm looking through my notes here.
I think that we should discuss Tilly.
Or
the lack of Tilly.
Yeah, where's Tilly at?
I'm just very surprised, and I said this when she left, but I was like really expecting to see her, if not by now. Yeah. I was expecting the subplot of like, okay, we're going to see Tilly on the thing. And now she's just gone. And now I'm like a little confused because I'm like, I know that they can't possibly have sent her away forever. Like, she's got to be coming back. I mean, maybe she'll be back next week. Maybe she won't be back until the second half of the season. But like, why did we lose her for has it been just two full episodes?
Yeah, 2.
Well, it feels like so many. It feels like years that we've gone without Tilly.
Yeah, it has been weird without her. Also, no Tarka after they kind of set him up last week, and it seemed clear that he was going to probably stick around, but not in this one.
I don't know. Do you think we'll see her next week?
You know what? I don't think so. If they're going to take a break, they obviously knew that they were going to do that, or at least were fairly sure. And so, yeah, I think that I don't think we'll see her again until we come back from the break. That's my guess.
Maybe at the end of next week's episode, it'll be like, there's a problem only Starfleet Academy can fix, or there's a problem only Tilly can fix, and then cut to credits, and we'll be like, nah, and then we'll have to wait to see her.
Tilly's mom is in charge of the DMA. She's flying it around.
That would be the funniest twist.
We're gonna need Tilly for this.
Maybe ever. Gotta
talk your mom down.
You have to face your greatest fear.
Well, you heard it here first. I think that's what's gonna happen. Write it down. Well, I think that is it for our show this week. Thanks for joining us, listeners. And if you like what you hear, this kind of discussion, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD for updates and to get notified when episodes of both Enterprising Individuals and Discoverage are released. And you can tweet to us on the show by using the hashtag Discoverage, or email us at EISTpod@gmail.com. And also, while you're on the internet, why not head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our show feed. Give us a rating and a review because it really helps us out. If you want to help the show grow, you can stop by our Patreon page at patreon.com/EISTpod. And as always, if you like the show, tell a friend. Discoverage will return on December 30th for the 7th episode of Star Trek Discovery's 4th season. We don't have a title for that one yet, but it will be the mid-season finale, the first mid-season finale for Discovery since Into the Forest I Go from Discovery's first season way, way back in 2017. Yeah, I remember that. We'll be here next Thursday to cover it. We'll be going live once again at 8 p.m. Central, so join us then. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook at EISTpod to get notified when we're live and broadcasting. In the meantime, check out our main show, Enterprising Individuals, at enterprisingindividuals.com. Every Wednesday on the show, I and a special guest discuss in excruciating detail a selected episode from a Star Trek series. We also have news from the Star Trek sphere and interviews with special guests. And our show is still on holiday hiatus currently, but you can access all 6 seasons of our episodes at enterprisingindividuals.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Ella, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and thanks as always for joining me to talk about tonight's episode of Discovery. Where can people find you online?
Thank you. My home podcast is called Generations Geek. We have our interview up with the lovely Jim Johnson, which is a riot. So everybody should check that out.
Yeah, do that. Jim is a great guy and a great guest. And you can find me at KA1IBAN on Twitter. All the shows on the Just Enough Trope Network can be found at Just Enough Trope on Twitter and wherever you get your podcasts. And that is it for us. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, however you celebrate. I hope you're having a good one. We are going to sign off for this week. And this is Aaron for Ella saying, live long and prosper.